So hello all you amazing people, hope you're doing fantastic today. This is Brett Tadlock, TN Artist, and this is the newest painting for patrons. So this is the one that I put out there just recently to show everybody the kind of some stuff that I practiced on. And I was practicing on this one to try and put together some new ideas, just kind of kicking around some stuff, and did this one. And so I thought I would show you kind of how I did it. So I'm going to start back over with it and play around, because I didn't record it at all while I was painting it. I was really just practicing. And I wasn't sure how long it would take and how it would turn out and all that kind of fun stuff. And just kicking around some ideas with this one and a few others. And I liked how it turned out and wanted to practice. So let me show you what all I did with it, so that way, we can kind of go through it all. So I'm going to see if I can't put all of this into a folder, like so, and just group it into there, and make a new layer outside of and turn on pigment. So what I've done here is I have an 10 by 8 inch canvas. It is 150 dpi. That's usually what I work with, because then I can upscale it however I want for, usually by 4 times or something like that. And I started with the oil colors over here for the palette, and then just used some of the standard brushes plus a few of my own that I have. If you have my brushes from Gumroad, then you can use those. But a lot of these brushes that I used for painting this are really a lot of the standard ones. And I used some of the marker and that kind of stuff as well. So we're going to play around with some of those as we go through this for doing it. So one of the first things I did was I chose this background color, this bluish color. I honestly just went up here, clicked on this, and knew I wanted to do something underwater, so I just chose kind of a generic blue color. I didn't want to go too bluish purple or too turquoise or anything like that, so I just kind of went with a generic blue in the middle, and went kind of towards the middle here. There's the numbers and everything, so that way if you want to go with a similar. And I said okay, and then I have the hot pressed paper at 100% scale, and I said okay for that. So once I had that there, I said, all right, so now what I want to do is, I know that in the ocean, the further you get away from the top, the darker it's going to get. So I wanted to have that kind of a gradated kind of flow here. So the way I did that was I came over and I selected my rectangular tool. And I usually go between these two right here, either add to selection or subtract from selection for the most part. So I went with add, and I just come across, and we'll come down a little bit here. And then hit enter. And then I pressed I and selected the background color. And went up here, and then I said, okay, I'm going to come down here and go darker, right about so. And I just kind of went further down. I didn't want to go all the way down, but I wanted to go darker. So something like that. Again, there's the numbers. And then I went to the fill bucket and filled it. Okay. Go to my selection tool again. I'm going to go a little above that. And I'm going to select. So now I've got this here. I'm going to go to filter, Gaussian blur. And I'm going to increase this to about 60 or so. So I've got this blur here. Could maybe even go up to 70. And apply. And press T. Drag that up. Maybe even move this down just slightly. I always like to make this a little bit larger than the canvas, so I don't have to worry about it. Like that. And hit enter. And Control D. So now I've got this nice little gradation that kind of flows down into there. And then the top up here, I want to have some nice ripples for water, like the ocean is rippling up above. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my stencils. I have the Waves 2 stencil right here. I'm going to turn off lock size ratio, and I'm going to flip vertically, and I'm just going to stretch that like so. Right click it and drag it to the top. Something like, and then you can see where I've got these other colors here. So what I did was I just selected a kind of a turquoisey, kind of basically from where I was and came over. So I had kind of this turquoisey kind of color. And then came over to my acrylic express oil brushes here and went down to the smooth knife. Use my right bracket to make it a little bit larger and just kind of brush this in a little bit, really soft. Just trying to get a variation of the look and feel. Okay. And then I'm going to go with a little bit lighter color, which all I did for that was when I had this color, I just basically came down a little bit and then went up a little bit lighter. There's the numbers again. And I just wanted to break up some of this same color, like so. Now I'm going to push 4, and I'm going to blend it, diagonal strokes, and just really soft, kind of a back and forth, leaving some of those diagonals. I do recommend having your preview window on another monitor if you have more than one monitor. I have mine up above where I can look at it. And then I'm just kind of bringing this down and just kind of going back and forth and scrubbing it a little bit. Okay, knowing that I'm going to move this in a second and lightly go over it again. So delete it. Or not delete it, but hit backspace and remove it. And then I'm going to lightly, still staying with 4, and bring this down in size. Just kind of, especially these ones off behind here, I'm going to go over and just kind of go horizontal and soften those. And then a few of these up here, I'll just kind of grab and go that same diagonal. Okay. Like so. And any of these I think that are a little too harsh, I'll just come in and soften. Like so. Okay. Now this is totally up to you. If you want it a little bit softer, spend some more time softening it. Totally up to whatever you want to do. Okay. So I kind of like it like that. All right. So now keeping the same color here, I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to press 1. Going to use my right bracket. And I'm going to just make some vertical strokes and skipping some spaces like so. Trying to get a little bit of different intensity levels here and there. This. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Gaussian layer, Gaussian filter, Gaussian blur. Now I set up a different preference here, a shortcut key. If you've never done that before, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and then you can cut Keyboard, Tools. You can just go to your to the different tools, and you can click on it, and you can set it up to be whatever shortcut key that you want it to be. Okay, so that's all I did there. I just went and found the Gaussian blur, and then I set it to be my shortcut, and then I just clicked OK. And that's just a matter of clicking on it, changing it, then telling it OK. So for me, it's Shift Control left bracket. Control Shift left bracket. There we go. I clicked it out of order. Now I'm going to bring this down. I want to blur this, but I don't want it as blurred as it was. I want to keep some of the streaks. Okay, so I don't want it like this as much. I want it to keep these streaks. So maybe around 65. Apply. Something like that. I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times. So 1, 2, and I'm going to hide those. Come back down to the original one. I'm going to press T. I'm going to scrunch that in a little bit. And when my cursor turns to that little circle, I'm going to twist it. And I'm going to stretch it. I'm going to kind of match it up with some of those streaks that I had there. And hit enter. Go over here to the next one. I'm going to hit T. Stretch it in. I'll parallel it to that one. Maybe even overlap, move it around slightly. Hit enter. I'm going to come to the next one. Hit T. Key thing here is to keep all these pretty much lined up the same. And the reason I multiplied these and then moved them around is because if I did it with the first one and then multiplied that one, any place that it went off the canvas, it would be cut off and wouldn't exist anymore. So I want to do these separately. So now I've got all those. I'm going to select all three. I'm going to merge them. I'm going to turn off pigment. I'm going to change this to overlay. Right, something like that. And I'm going to bring the opacity down because I want this to be really soft. All right. So now I have something like that. Now I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to change this to eraser. Bring down my cursor size. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to just kind of erase some of this back so that it starts with some of these. Like so. All right. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab my smudge tool. And I'm just going to kind of come along with these, go in the same direction, very lightly going to soften these. Allows me to have a little bit more control than using just the Gaussian blur filter, but the Gaussian blur filter kind of gets me to where I want to be first. And this gives me just that little bit extra control. And again, I'm just softening these up here at the top. Okay. Now, if that's a little too many of those for you, you can just select the eraser. Don't want the hard, want the soft. And we can come in and just kind of soften it up the top. And kind of from the bottom as well. Maybe get rid of some of those here and there, so that it looks like it's just kind of fading out. Now you can also come down to this layer, which is our gradation layer. Come over and select the smudge tool and just kind of smudge some of that dark up towards the light. So again, go in the same direction. So this is important. You want to make sure that you're kind of going, keeping all of this going the same direction, like so. All right, so these have got to be going similar. Doesn't overly matter if it's 100%, but as long as it's in the ballpark. Kind of pulling that up towards it. Something like that. And that starts to give us that really interesting feeling and look of the light kind of twisting and turning and fading into itself. Okay, that's going to start setting that background. Okay, hit Control S to save it. All right, so now we've got that kind of blended in. stuff is. Now we can also come over here to our overlay layer. We could come back to our brush here, and we could grab one of these lighter colors that I have here. Now the way you could do that to keep with the color harmony is just select on this color, and that was just Alt and click. Click on it, come straight down, so I'm still in the same family, come up, so I've got a lighter color. Click left to lower it down, and then come in here and just start making a few. Now if this is too blue, because that's pretty blue, you can desaturate it even more by coming straight down towards the white. And just kind of come in here and put some highlights here and there. Like this. And this is really just kind of looking at where these light spots are. Just adding a few lighter spots like that. You can go even lighter, like so. Then come over here, push 4, just kind of streak that down. Again, trying to stay similar direction. And this works great for clouds too. So like if you've got clouds and you want to have sunlight streaking down through the clouds, very similar thing. Okay. So you're trying to get that Studio Ghibli kind of a look. Get your selection tool here for your smudge, and just kind of soften it a little bit. Just like so. And there you go. So that'll work for the background. Again, we can come back later, add more stuff. And so if I hide this for a second, you can see here I've got different ones added in. So it's as much or as little as you want to add in. Okay, so we've got similar stuff here. All right, but that's how I kind of got that background into it. All right, so now the next thing we need to do is figure out, okay, where do we want to put our shark and how are we going to do that? So make a new layer. Now the way I did it was I came over to my selection tool and did my free form, and I said, okay, what's the shape I want to do? I'm not overly worried about proportions or anything right now as far as like compared to my background here. So I can make it as big as I want right now and just kind of take it easy for doing stuff. So I can come in something like that. If you think about it, a shark is really just kind of a meat torpedo more than anything else. So kind of this shape. Excuse me. And the reason I'm using this add to is because this way, if there's something I want to add to, say I want a little bit more of a point there, I can do that. Okay. That was a little too pointed. So something like that. I can always kind of bring it around. And all I'm looking at right now is just kind of the profile of how this meat torpedo is going to be set up. This death torpedo. That's what these guys are. Giant death torpedoes. Okay. Something like that. And something like that. So see, we got to really just by sitting here and playing around, boom, you've got a shark outline. You know, not a lot of drawing skill really needed. I know some people are like, I can't draw. Well, you know, you don't have to overly worry about it if you just kind of play around with looking at the shape of it. Okay. And the nice thing is that as you do this, you can just add to it. And then if you don't like something, you come over and do this remove. And you can just kind of whittle it down and take away. And just kind of keep playing around till you get the shape that you want. Okay, so don't let it intimidate you. All right, just keep playing around with it and messing around with it. You can do this also with brushes. Like you could sit here and just kind of doodle in this shape and play around with it. I just kind of like doing this because I can see the outline, if you will, of what it looks like. And so then what I did from here is I just kind of selected this dark color before. You know, just push I, select the dark color, and then I came up here and clicked that, and I came down to a really darker color, something like that. Said OK. Then I went back to my fill bucket, and then did that. So now I have my shark outline. I have my shark shape. Okay. Now I'm going to push T, and I'm going to bring this over more to the middle. All right. Like so. Hit enter. I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to push the protect transparency or lock transparency, and I'm also going to turn back on my use color pigments. Okay. Because this is going to allow me to really have more of a natural blending with it. Now, I had some really nice blending on this shark, if I do say so myself. How did I get that really nice blending for it? Well, what I did was I came over here and I went to the marker and I selected dry marker. Okay, this is the one we're going to use for just about this entire painting. All right, so what I did from here was then I clicked on this and I've got this darkness and I came straight down. So I'm in more of this grayish kind of color. You can even come down further. So it's almost this desaturated kind of bluish gray, right? Because what color is a shark? It's a bluish gray. Okay. And using this and kind of coming up to the middle right about here. Okay. I selected that. And then I've got my marker here. And what I did is I just kind of went along and I said, okay, so I want to have right about here is I think where the top would be. And then maybe along through here, I want to have maybe where the gills, and then maybe the top of the fin here, maybe some light coming over here. And I'm just using very little pressure, just very little pressure. Okay, and all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of softly laying in where I think the light would be hitting this death torpedo. Okay, just something like that. And just by kind of sitting here and kind of scrubbing it around, I can get a feel for where it's kind of hitting it. There's nothing there that's crazy drawing skills, guys. And the nice thing about this is if I did all this and I was like, ugh, yuck, Control Z, undo it. Don't panic, okay? I can come along here on this edge because I have this protected lock transparency. I can highlight the edge there. I can get some nice kind of cool looking. Now this nice thing is with this paper, it gives kind of a cool look to the skin, you know, so we can use that because that works for being underwater. I'm not going to leave it there right now. I want this to have a smoother look to it, but I can get this kind of laid in, then push 4, and then I can come back and start softening this. Remembering that I'm going to start defining the form by how I blend this over. And all I'm doing is blending in the direction of the body here. Okay? And I can really push around some of this and get these wonderful, starting to build up gradations. Okay, now the key is I don't want to blend all this where it becomes just a big, instead of being a dark blob, it becomes just one solid gray blob. All right, so I want to leave some of that dark. And this is where you want to, do a Google search for shark pictures. Do a Pinterest search for shark pictures. I am not saying copy the shark pictures, unless you've got copyright free ones that you've researched to use for your own purposes. Do not copy the photos, but look at them. There's nothing wrong with looking at them for reference to say, okay, how does the anatomy of this shark work? How does the light wrap around in several of these pictures? How would that wrap around? So that way you've got a frame of reference in your mind for what hits where. There's nothing wrong with that part. Do not copy someone's photo. Okay? That is copyright infringement. Just because it's on Google or on the internet does not mean it's copyright free. So do not copy someone's photo. You're free to look at my painting that I've got there and use that as your reference if you want to. But the problem with that is that it's kind of like if you make a copy of a copy, you're interpreting my interpretation of a shark. So that's going to be less of an actual shark if you're trying to go for something that's kind of real. So look at some photos of sharks, and different stuff, and then use that to build your own shark. But don't copy someone else's photo unless it is one that says it is copyright free for use in your own projects. Okay. Now, if you want to use something like Envato Elements, you can do that. That's a paid subscription where you can get copyright usage out of it. You pay for the subscription. iStock Photo has ones that you can use. Adobe has ones that you can use. So there are places that you can pay for a subscription to get access to photos that have copyright free. Pixabay, ones like that, they say they're copyright free. I have heard of people getting sued because it turns out that it is not copyright free. So buyer beware. Okay. Now I'm going to just come up here and I'm going to use some of these colors that I already had up here. All these are, guys, is just where I would select a color. I would select back here from some of these colors and then just go click on it, go a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. So that's all I'm doing. Okay. That's how you get the color harmony. I'm not going to sit here and pull up each color on this. Don't need to. Whatever your colors are back here, just select, like you can come up here and just hit Alt, click on that color, and then come down here, and hit, and just start laying in some color on your shark. Okay. And then if that's too blue, you can come over here, desaturate it, and then start painting it. Go back to 4, smudge it around. Hit Alt, select that, and that's your new color. So that's how I got these colors, okay? And that's why the color of the shark then goes well with the background, is because I'm pulling from colors in the background. That's how you get the color harmony. All right. So that's all these are. So that's how you get the same thing. Okay. That's why I'm not going to sit here and pull up this one and go, this exact color is. All right. You don't need that. I do need to define this edge a little more though. Something that's a little low, I think. Let's come a little higher. maybe something like that. 4, just kind of blend that back around. I'm going to select a little darker color. Open this mouth up a little bit. Something like that. Where this light color, sharks are lighter on the bottom, so that way when a fish or something's looking from below up, they match the sky above them. It's kind of a cool camouflage. I'm going to kind of define maybe something like this. This will help me kind of get a feel for where the underside is. Something like that. Okay. Because their jowls that they have actually round over pretty good, so there's usually a lighter spot there where it rounds over. So I'm just kind of laying in some color because I'm going to actually blend a lot of this over. So I'm just kind of pre-shaping it with some of the light spots. Like that. Press 4, go a little bit bigger on my brush. See, by having these protected for the transparency, I can just go right over the edge. The harder I push, the more it blends it. The lighter I push, the less it blends it. This is a great way if you want to do like a gray study, like a monochromatic study. This is a great way to do it. We're coming up right on about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. Thinking I may save this and then break it into parts. And that is one thing I would love some feedback on, is if you want it broken in, these broken into parts, or if you want me to just keep doing them as longer videos. Which do you prefer? Okay, please let me know that. I don't mind either way. I just want to know what is the preference. Sure that you're getting the most out of this, because I know for some people having the longer lesson where they can go and have chapters is good. I know for others that's intimidating. So I just want to know, and I'll kind of leave it to the majority. I need to save this anyway, just in case my recording software crashes, which it's been known would suck. So see how we're just going to keep building this up. We're already getting some nice textures and some nice layers. This marker tool, I think, is really just not utilized enough. It's a good brush. You can get some really nice stuff out of it for this kind of work. All right, I'm going to save it. We'll be right back in just a second.